We have seen so many journalists and politicians claim that video games are bad for people. They'll say, oh, video games cause real world violence or misogynistic attitudes in people. Just generally awful things, and of course, I've talked about many studies destroying these narratives, finding video games don't cause real violence or misogynistic attitudes, and another giant new study was released showing that video games don't appear to be harmful to mental health. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So this is a Guardian article. It says playing video games has no effect on well-being. Research into gameplay habits of 40,000 people counters fears that gaming could harm mental health. This is a rather large study. Usually when I'm talking about these studies, it's 1,000 to 5,000 people. But 40,000 people is quite a large chunk. It says time spent playing video games has no effect on people's well-being, a study from the University of Oxford has found, countering fears that gaming could be harmful to mental health. Unlike the vast majority of previous studies on the effect of video games on well-being, the Oxford team were able to track actual gameplay rather than relying on self-reported estimates. With the cooperation of 7 different game publishers who agreed to share data without control over publication, they were able to track the gameplay habits of almost 40,000 individual gamers, all of whom consented to join the study. So this is, of course, a very legitimate study. It's a larger study, and as it says, they also cooperated with 7 different game publishers. It doesn't say the game publishers, of course, it says that individuals consented to join the study, but they actually, have quite a large basis to go off of here. It says the scale of the study provided strong evidence for the lack of an effect on well-being, one of the researchers said. With 40,000 observations across 6 weeks, we really gave increases and decreases in video gameplay a fair chance to predict emotional states and life satisfaction, and we didn't find evidence for that. We found evidence that that's not true in a practically significant way. What is important, they said, is the mindset that people have as they approach games. Players were asked to report their experiences on grounds such as autonomy, competence, and intrinsic motivation, to unpick whether they were playing for healthy reasons, such as having fun or socializing with friends, or more concerning ones, such as a compulsion to satisfy goals set by the game. I've always talked about how positive games are. Games are such a great thing. I mean, as it says, they help with socializing with friends. They're simply just fun. They do give people everyday satisfaction in completing their goals. But it says healthier motivation was associated with positive well-being. The study found while players who felt as if they had to play the game also tended to have worse satisfaction regardless of how long they played. The finding of no link between gameplay and well-being could break down at extreme levels. There may be an effect if a player increases their playtime by 10 hours a day above what is typical for them. The study did not collect data for individual gameplay sessions with durations below 0 or above 10 hours due to the risk of logging errors, but it is strong enough to refute many fears of an overall link between gaming time and poor mental health, and this is such a great thing to see. We constantly see individuals, like I mentioned, journalists, politicians, trying to say that gaming is ruining people, that people who play games for too long end up with worse mental health, these, awful misogynist attitudes, that video games are causing very awful things to happen. Video games, make you violent. We've seen all of these claims for years, and it's so amazing to see studies like this come out and break those narratives, destroy the narratives. And this was another article I talked about from a few months ago. It says study finds video games with sexualized content do not cause misogynistic attitudes or body image issues. This is another great study. That video that I previously did will be linked down below, but this came out in July. It says, according to the results of a recent study, psychologists have found that the evidence is weak that sexualized games influence player attitudes and behavior. I love seeing things like this that break the narratives that have come out over the years. Unfortunately, we have to defend our hobbies to the death because people want something to blame, and video games and gamers are an easy target. Politicians love to say video games are evil. While they think it'll gain them respect, it just makes them look like out-of-touch old fools, and I've always said this. And even people like game journalists, they are paid to talk about games, yet they love to say, well, maybe it's the video games because they think gamers are just generally terrible people. We don't even have journalists that talk about our hobbies on our side at this point, and that's why it's so great to see studies like this released, because it is evidence to support us, to say, hey, listen, no matter what your claims are, there is proof that video games are not the ones causing people to be awful, causing these awful attitudes in individuals. Going back to the Guardian article, it says that said, the findings cannot cover the whole of gaming. Despite approaching more than 30 publishers, only 7 agreed to take part. You would think that more publishers would want to be part of studies like this because it only helps them. I mean, politicians can't attack them and can't attack the way that they make money if more studies like this are released. I don't get it. I don't understand why they wouldn't partake, but they decided not to. It says a lot of the games that were studied were Animal Crossing New Horizons, Apex Legends, EVE Online, Forza Horizon 4, Gran Turismo Sport, Outriders, one of the worst games I've ever played, and The Crew 2 represent a broad but not total cross-section of the medium. So yeah, we're not talking about only competitive games or only more lighthearted, fun games. We're talking about a very good mixture here. It's taken a year and a half for these game companies to donate their data, and these games were not picked at random, but these are the publishers that are up for open science, which obviously I think is great. I play quite a few of these games, Animal Crossing, Apex Legends, I've played Outriders. So yeah, I mean, I think that these are all pretty good games to look at. Now, even though this study has come out, I'm sure we'll still continue to see individuals claim that video games are bad for people, but this is still a very great study that counters fears that gaming could harm people's mental health. But for now, that's all that I really had to discuss. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video and found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.